How you doing, Adam?
I'm doing good. So Darwin is the man. I remember just being awestruck by the guy when I was a kid getting into magic. And if you ever had the chance to see him lecture live, he's like the Mike Tyson of magic. You know, it's like boom, boom, left, right, damn, boom. I mean, you're talking about getting punched and smacked around. That's what Darwin Ortiz does to you in lecture. Not I'm using I'm not actually. He doesn't really hit you, but he does
Metaphorically, he's hitting
metaphorically.
you.
Magic is very powerful and it does smack you. Darwin is a legend for good reason. And if you're new to magic and you've never heard of the guy, today is going to be a great introduction to Darwin Ortiz, I think.
It's really true. All of his magic is very, very commercial. It plays for everybody. And he has picked really like all of the best plots in magic. And he's one of these guys that can see the essence in these effects. And he really distills them down to their, what is the most powerful part of the effect? How do I accent the most and get the most out of that effect? And he's really, really skilled at not only performing, but skilled at creating. And he's written books on just theories of magic and creation of magic. So those are definitely worth your time as well. But the material, that's where it's really at for me. So I think probably the best thing to do is to just jump into one of these things and we'll go talk about it on the other side. Let's have a look.
Yeah, let's watch the magic for
Just
sure.
to begin,
That's
you really want to
that's the
have-
wrong screen, Ethan. That's your desktop. We can see your desktop, but not the actual video. I was going to say after we watch this video, we'll come back and talk about a couple of his books too, Alex.
Certainly.
All right, there we go. Yeah,
just
there it
to
is.
begin, you really won't have to do anything just now, except watch. I'm going to try something that uses just a few cards. And the reason I'm only going to use a few cards is that I realize that sometimes when I perform with cards, people find it a little bit difficult to figure out how these things happen.
So young.
I think the reason is that they have so many cards to keep track of, because 52 cards is a lot of cards and get a little confusing. But if I try something with a small packet of 4 cards and only 1, 2, 3, 4 cards, there's nothing confusing about that, especially if I ask you to keep track of just one of the 4 cards, 2 of hearts. No matter what I do, you keep track of the 2 of hearts. So that if I were to count through the cards or shuffle or cut the cards, you'd keep track of the deuce. If you've been doing your job, you know the 2's now on top. Now, what you may not realize is that I can place the 2 of hearts on the bottom and a snap will bring it back to the top. Or that I can take the 2 of hearts and count the other 3 cards onto it. The snapping brings it back to the top. You know, I can even bury the 2 of hearts in the middle of the packet. It's when you snap that it comes back to the top. I've even tried tossing the 2 aside and it comes back. You can place it on the bottom. Let me review this for you. I can place the 2 of hearts on the bottom. It's the snapping that brings it back to the top, or you can toss it aside, it comes back. As a matter of fact, after I've been doing this for a while, people sometimes think that all 4 cards are the same. And of course, all 4 cards are the same. Because the first card I use is a 10 of spades. The second card I use is a 10 of spades. The third card I use is a 10 of spades. In this demonstration, I employ nothing but 10s of spades. Vicky, do you have any idea the name of this trick?
No.
Like any guess at all?
Oh, the 4-card trick.
No, that's a wonderful guess. I may rename it. No, but the only reason I ask is that a lot of people think that I call it the 10 of spades trick, but I don't. A lot of people call it the 2 of hearts trick. I call this trick the 4 kings trick. The reason I call this trick the 4 kings trick is because in this trick I employ only 4 kings.
Great.
I mean,
Trick.
talk about magic packed into one route. So much magic packed into one routine, or so many moves too. I mean,
There's a lot of moves. That's the trade-off with that one, is that there are a lot of moves, but it is a 4-card trick, and it's one of those things. It's only 4 cards. Legitimately, it's just those 4 cards, and it's one of those things that I see, because I do this trick, and I see it as that's just a trick that's built into every deck of cards.
that's right. I love how our members said, "Slow down." Robert Battle's like, "Slow down, bro." And Richard Dean now has a headache. Well, it's okay. I
It's
mean,
okay.
I don't know. I think it's pretty dazzling to watch his hands, move at those speeds. But I'm sure there's magicians may say, slow down, may like that slowed down approach. Seems to me Darwin that was a young Darwin too,
That's a
right?
young Darwin, and the moment that he's really going quicker there, at that moment you sort of have to go quicker, because those are the moments where the questions could arise, and you have to move through it quickly during those parts where you saw that exaggerated speed, because there's no room for conversation. It's just getting to it, and now you're at a place where things are what they seem. You know what I mean? So you sort of have to have that speedy spot, but because everything else is moving a little bit quicker, it seems a little bit more exaggerated when he goes fast in that spot. And again, I think you can probably attribute that to what you just said, just age. He's a younger guy, and he's probably got way more perspective. And I'm sure now when he does that trick, the speed's just right, except for that little moment where he needs to go a little bit quicker, and it's just fine. But yeah, it's definitely a thing to watch out for.
There's something there's something you taught one time in a show that you were doing, and I saw Darwin doing it. I forgot exactly I don't want to do it on the spot, but you basically, it's the one where you say, I'm going to take the first card and count it down to the bottom. And then it comes back, that thing, and you taught it in the show, right?
Actually, this whole thing, we did an event on this jumping. This is called Jumping Gemini. It's one of Darwin's classic effects, and we tore it apart pretty well in the back room. So members, do yourself a favor and go and check out Jumping Gemini. You're going to be real happy, because it's sort of like a master class in moves, in packet moves, right? Because there's all those little bits of technology that make that thing work. They all sort of cross over, and it's cross training. You can use that for most of the packet magic that you see. That's going to be a real good course on just learning the basics of that kind of stuff. And it's a fabulous trick. And it's a trick that's built into every deck. Like I said, that's the way I literally see that thing, is like, if there's a deck of cards sitting around, Jumping Gemini is sitting on the table. You know what I mean? So it's, it's a nice thing to just have in the memory bank. So check it out.
There's that beautiful show too, like Darwin does that beautiful show where he shows all four cards. He turns them one at a time over like this, and shows all four cards, and Aaron Fisher's got a version of this too, where he's able to, I forgot what he calls it, but it's like
a quick three-way or one of those diminishing lift sequences.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a diminishing lift sequence that Aaron put out a long time ago in one of his sets of lecture notes. But there's been several magicians try to solve that last card problem. That's right. In that, there's the last card problem. And I really like the way Darwin handled it. He just handled it with speed, right?
Yeah, he just handled it with speed. It was fine. And it flies right by. Because the reality is once you're in that place where you're doing that diminishing lift sequence, immediately you're in the next phase of it. Now they're all the kings, right? So there's nothing to backtrack to. So it's pretty good. It's pretty good. That's a pretty solid piece of magic. And, I don't think that's the only trick you do. That's a great way to once people realize you're a little bit magic, you do that thing in the middle of, after you've done a good opener, you do that thing, it establishes skill and credibility really quick. You know what I mean? So it's a good device for that. If you have enough time with the spectators where you can actually sit down and do a set with them, that's definitely a good piece to put in there.
Let's watch some more Darwin Ortiz magic.
Let's keep going here.
Let's keep going.
If you've ever been to Las Vegas, you may have noticed the mirrors on the ceilings. I mean in the casinos, not in your hotel rooms. The casino's mirrors are two-way mirrors. They're part of the casino surveillance system for spotting cheating by players or by dealers. Whenever I do any consulting work for a gambling casino, as I did recently for the Ritz Club in London, for example, I always pay particular attention to the way the dealer shuffles the cards. Now, I want to show you how a cheat can control the cards while shuffling the deck prior to dealing. Just to make it a little bit easier for you to follow what's happening once I start to shuffle, I'm going to sort the cards out to an extent so that, as you can see, all of the red cards are together, and all of the black cards are together. Now, there are a lot of different ways of shuffling cards. One shuffle you'll see in many home games and private games is an overhand shuffle like this. Now, the problem with this kind of a shuffle is that a cheat can use it to control the cards, because you see the red cards are still together, the black cards are still together. So you'll never see a dealer in Las Vegas shuffle this way. Casino dealers are required to shuffle with the cards held flat on the table like this. Now, the problem with this kind of a shuffle is that a cheat can use it to control the cards. Red cards together, black cards together. Hope you're not colorblind, Mary, or none of this will make any sense to you. That's why today in many gambling casinos, the dealer is required to go even further. He has to start the shuffle by dividing the cards into several small groups. Shuffles 2 groups together, comes back, shuffles a different 2 groups together, keeps doing that till they're all mixed. If you've ever played blackjack in Atlantic City, you've seen all the casinos there shuffle that way. I want to show you why that really is the most thorough method of mixing cards. And I'll divide the deck into 4 groups, 2 blacks and 2 reds. I'm going to ask you, Vicki, to take one of the black groups, shuffle it. I'll take one of the red groups and shuffle it. Any kind of shuffle is good enough for our purposes, Vicki. Just try not to let us see the faces of the cards, and just put them face down right here whenever you're satisfied. I'll be honest with you, Vicki, that was not the greatest shuffle. Mary, let's see if you can do better, because I'm going to ask you to take the remaining red group, shuffle it. I'll take the remaining black group and shuffle it. I take it back, Vicki. Maybe that wasn't such a bad shuffle after all. Actually, it doesn't matter, because the important part is when I shuffle all 4 groups together. For example, I'll take one of the black groups, one of the red groups, I'll shuffle them together, and you can see that that really is a thorough shuffle. And I'll take the remaining red group, the remaining black group, and once again, I'll use a style of shuffle that very thoroughly meshes the reds and the blacks together as well as I can do it. You can see from up close they are really meshed. So there can be no doubt that the reds and the blacks are thoroughly mixed together over here, and that the reds and the blacks are thoroughly mixed together over here. The only problem is that a really skilled card cheat can still end up with all of the red cards over here and all of the black cards over here.
Again, solid commercial piece of magic, man. So good. I love it.
So Darwin is and always has been, known as a guy who can speak on the authority of gambling scams, casino cheats. He's definitely an authority in card manipulation and definitely, the way that a person would go in and cheat at cards. What he's doing here is he's doing some of his demo material. He's demoing, under the guise of how a person may cheat is shuffling the cards. He's demoing a lot of the stuff that we magicians use in our everyday lives. So if you know what magic is, and you know what like the zero shuffle is, if you know what well, I won't go into any more detail than that, but I'll just say that there's a lot of stuff in that routine there that's very helpful if you're into gambling, if you're into like gambling demonstrations and stuff. There's a lot there that I think you could really unpack and use. Mostly found in, I think, the book called
At the Card Table.
Yeah, Darwin Ortiz At the Card Table. It came out in 1987 or 88. I can't remember.
Yeah. This one is definitely, that's his first real trick collection that he put out. That was a major hardbound collection, right? And that is the material we're seeing today is all in that book. And recently that was reprinted. We have that available in the store. Get it if you're interested in this stuff, because it comes in and out of print. Right now it's one of those times that it's in print. It was out of print for a long time. They were very desirable and hard to get, any edition of that book. And, it's been printed multiple times, but to get any edition, you're paying a lot of money. Right now, Darwin, the rights reverted back to Darwin. You can buy the book directly from Darwin or from us. We're buying them from Darwin, essentially. And it's an outstanding book, and all of his books are outstanding, and I would recommend all of them. But that's specifically, this is the material from At the Card Table. It's a wonderful, wonderful book.
I have a question too, Alex, because I know you're very familiar with that last routine and every aspect of that last routine, and so am I. The question I have is, that last phase, would you perhaps maybe have handled that last phase even with just continuation of the zero as opposed to the way he handled it? Or do you think that routine is open to interpretation is that the kind of routine where you get to jam and do it the way you want to do it?
I don't see why you couldn't. The reality is I do it the way Darwin presents it, because I think that that's a pretty stark thing that happens when you show them Pharaoh to get woven together. Everyone's handled all the cards essentially. And then you immediately put those cards down on the table and spread, and they see all one color. You spread all one color. You really can't beat that, right? Like that seems like a good ending to that sequence to me. So I'm happy to stick with that. You know what I mean?
Right, because right, because there's red and black, and he squares them together and immediately spreads them, and they're all red, right?
Right, exactly. And then
yeah,
exactly, on both sides, exactly. And you're left with that beautiful situation. And now it makes sense that you would push everything together and say, clearly I shouldn't be trusted with the shuffle. Why don't you shuffle and move on to your next effect? You know what I mean? It's a beautiful moment. It's a beautiful moment. And it establishes skill as a card handler, you know, because I think that you're similar to me in that we're sort of general practitioners of magic rather than like I'm a card magician or a coin magician. I do a little bit of it all, right? So when you're doing like a card section in a show, a piece like that's a very powerful device to just establish that you're, you know, a guy that can do that card stuff. And then, you know, I generally handle all that card stuff very modularly, where I have like a definite closer that I do when I do a card set, you know. So I do these things and then I close the card set and then I move on to another piece. But having that whole Vegas shuffle thing in the middle there, it's lovely, man. It's really lovely. You get a lot more credit than you probably deserve as being just a master card handler doing a sequence. It's
for
really
people for people watching this maybe that are new to magic, Alex, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put the difficulty of that routine?
This is not an easy routine. This is definitely a difficult routine. Because the moves that are involved in this, they take a few years to master. And that's the problem when you encounter Darwin Ortiz, especially like when you come to that At the Card Table book. You start going through the book and go, man, home run after home run after home run after home run. But I have to learn this skill, right? Like well, let's talk about the title of the book. At the Card Table is his play on expert at the card table, right? Except it's called Darwin Ortiz at the Card Table is the title of the book, right? So it's sort of alluding to that he is like an Erdnase like character, right? Mm-hmm. Which again points to that you're going to have some chops to do this material. You know, you're going to have to definitely learn a skill or 2 or 3 and smooth those things out so that you can, you know, really make them seem as though nothing is happening other than I'm spreading cards or I'm having you pick a card and then you're going to shuffle and then a miracle happens, right? It's definitely intermediate to advanced type card work.
Right. I mean, just to get to the part where you can Pharaoh those small stacks is going to take a while. Not to mention the zero, not to mention the, you know, the other more complicated moves that are in that. So yeah,
right.
I mean,
a zero shuffle in and of itself is its own beast. Like that's a major moment in that sequence that we just watched, that zero shuffle, right? And your zero shuffle has to be tight and good and above question, right? It has to just look like you just shuffled the cards and everyone buys that you just shuffled the cards. So yeah, that's the buy-in, right? You have to have these different techniques. They have to be at such a level that no one's ever even going to detect, let alone suspect that trickery is going on, to paraphrase Erdnase, right? So it's definitely harder stuff, not to mislead anybody.
Well, let's watch some more, shall we?
Let's keep going. I'm having so much fun.
Yeah.
Either deck of cards, as a matter of fact, because in a deck of cards, the cards are all different. For this, I need cards which are all alike. These cards are all alike. Every one of these cards is identical in every way, with one exception. But except for that single 9 of diamonds, these cards are all deuces. They're all black deuces. They're all deuces of clubs, except for the 1 9 at the back. Now, 1 deuce, I'm going to place. 1 deuce, I'll place face down. 1 deuce, I'll place face up, and I'll keep alternating between face down deuces and face up deuces. The reason I need so many deuces is that, as you may know, in poker, deuces are wild. That means that a deuce can represent any card. It can represent the 9 of diamonds. What few people realize is that if I take a deuce and I rub it against a 9, it begins to resemble the 9 of diamonds. I'll do that for you again. I'll trap a deuce between 2 nines, and then I just twist. When I twist, that's when I'm left with nothing but nines. This next deuce I'll handle very slowly because I know this can be confusing. Naturally, it hasn't changed yet because I haven't rubbed. It's only when I rub that it changes, as have these other 3 cards. This next deuce I'm going to leave jutting out of the center of the packet. That way you can't suspect sleight of hand if I'm not even touching the card. But when I rub, it changes. Once again, I'll trap a deuce between 2 nines. Hasn't changed yet, Mary. It has changed now. That's when I'm left with nothing but nines. And you know, I can change these deuces not only 1 at a time, I could even change them 2 at a time, because I can take 2 deuces at the same time face to face. Now, if you do 2 at a time face to face, it's a little bit different because if I rub, they will change. Eventually, there's a time delay, but eventually they change. And finally, the most difficult deuce, the one that I change visibly, you'll actually see it melt into the 9 of diamonds. So we began with a single 9. We began with just 1 9 and 8 deuces. We end with 9 nines, and that's why deuces are wild.
The most popular trick of the 1980s right there. I do.
And you can see why.
Yeah.
You can see why.
Yes, that plot was wild in the 80s. I mean, I definitely remember my elders in Magic telling me, you know, that card plot's one you need to learn, kid. What a great trick.
It's a great piece of magic. Yeah, I've been tinkering with it for years. I think I've probably been through 4 different versions of wild card in my Magic life. And I can't imagine I'm going to stop. I'm having so much fun with it because it's makes your eyes pop out. I mean, even watching it now, I know everything he's doing. I know what is happening in every phase there, but it still just looks so good and it feels so magical. It's just what a great trick. What a great effect. And the whole plot of, well, you know, 2s are wild. Everyone's heard deuces are wild, right? And then he proves that deuces are wild through that whole little sequence. Great. Totally great. I love it.
Yeah, the other part too that I really liked, like because this routine came as a packet trick at one point. It may still be available as a packet trick. I don't know. I guess it
Absolutely is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because when I bought it, it was, you know, at the Magic shop, and it was like, you know, like $11.95 or something like that, and it was a packet trick. And it came in a little red package with the folded up instructions, you know, and it was really difficult to try to discern any of it. But this trick I remember that the fundamentals of a lot of magic were built into this trick. The fundamentals of double lifts, the fundamentals of the I mean, even the pass, as seen Darwin,
the color
Darwin,
change, the beautiful color change. And it's really it's very similar to what we were talking about before with the jumping Gemini, in that there's that very similar to like a diminishing lift sequence, right? It's that sort of technology is making all these weird color changes happen, because it really, when you boil it down, it's like a series of color changes, right? That's really what's happening, but they're inexplicable and they're changing to a specific place. And it's like, I'm going to do this thing. You're going to watch and you're not going to catch me. All right, you ready? Like that's like the that's like the challenge situation you're setting up every time you're about to pick up a card is, all right, it's going to happen again. Are you ready? They're going to change and you're not going to catch me. All right, here we go. And it happened again, right? And you're like doing that like 3, 4 times, 5 times throughout the course of that sequence. And it's like, it's almost like challenge magic, but it's not, right? Because it's tongue in cheek and you're handling it as, no, I just told you the deuces are wild, right? It's
one of my favorites, Alex, is the part where he shows the card and then he puts it, or sorry, he shows it like, and then he puts it face down like that in the middle, you know? Yeah. And he's like, and then he pulls it out and it's changed.
And it's sticking out and he rubs that one on the other 9s on the table. And then he
right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a sweet,
great.
I mean, that is a sweet move. And another thing I love too was, I love the part where he took at the end. I think, yeah, it was the end where he's got him like this. And he's like, you know, deuce, 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 deuce. And then he does that boom, and they both change, you know, that is just pops your eyes out.
And he fails like a couple times, right? It's like that moment at the end of Twisting the Aces where I can't get this last one to turn over. I always need the spectator to help, right? It's like he keeps on trying. He tries like 3 times, they don't change, and then finally, boom, so quick, it's like lightning. And then they both change. It's beautiful. What a
Joe
great
says. Joe says confidence. Are you, Joe?
Yeah.
Are you saying that is that what sells it for you, Joe? Is the amount of confidence he brings to it? Is that what really sells that trick? And Robert says Samuelson's presentation is my favorite.
Oh yeah, it's like the Invasion of the Body Snatchers presentation is what Peter does. It's pretty good. Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Peter's one of those. He's one of those guys that you just he's like a secret weapon. You don't see him coming. Peter's really. I had the opportunity to, when I worked the castle once, I was doing he was doing early close up. I was doing late close up. So we were like ships passing in the night, and we would get to trade the dressing room for the close-up gallery. And, I got to talk shop with him a little bit, and he's just an extremely knowledgeable guy. If you ever have a chance to be around Peter, go and watch him. He's awesome. He's got beautiful magic. And like I said, he's just really a smart magic guy. He's been there and done that and knows all the stuff. And I highly recommend you give him some time if you have the opportunity to do so. He's great. He's based out of New York. So for those of you on the East Coast, it's worth a trip. He's good. I think he runs that Monday Night Magic. He's a part of that. So for those.
So are we going to see anything from his later work today, or is this mostly all
this is all the early stuff? We're at the card table stuff. So we're gonna venture into all the stuff and see sort of the growth happen, and you see sort of another thing that happens with Darwin as you go through the years is you see him sort of soften, right? Because in these years, he's definitely sitting squarely in the attitude of being like a card hustler, right? Of being the guy who can cheat you, but he's not going to, because I'm going to do a show for you, right? So he's hanging squarely in that sort of presentational space. And as we go on, you'll see that sort of becomes a little bit less so. And he becomes more of just a guy who's doing magic. And I think it makes him a little bit more human, when he's playing that character of being the card cheat that's always winning, and, and he's always got that twinkle in his eye, and you're always sort of the loser, that softens and it makes it a little bit more approachable, I guess is the best way to put it as we go through the career of Darwin here. But let's go on to the next one. Let's take another look. Now we're looking at a real good showpiece here. This is something. This is good.
To give these a quick shuffle or a couple of cuts before we go on. And Vicki, do you know why? As soon as I saw you in the audience, I asked you to come up here and help me.
No, I don't.
This is going to sound strange, but I had a dream last night, and you were in my dream. Wasn't that kind of a dream? No, actually, a lot of people dream about their work, and I guess I'm the same way, because this was a dream about a card trick, and it was an incredible card trick. But I guess that's because things happen in dreams that could never happen in real life. Still, I was so impressed by the dream that when I woke up, I remembered the card in the dream. I took it out of an old deck and put it in my wallet. I have it here, and I want to show it to you. And what I want you to notice is that my dream card has a red back. I've even signed it across the back, so there's no way we can confuse it with the other cards we're working with. I'm not going to show you what the card is just yet, but I will tell you that my dream card is designed to predict something that Vicki is going to do in a few moments. At least that's the way it worked in the dream. And what Vicki is going to do in a moment is to pick a card from the deck. Because I'm going to spread through these cards, Vicki, and as I do so, I want you to touch the back of any card that you want. I don't care if she picks one near the top of the deck or near the middle or near the bottom. That's up to you. Just touch any card you want whenever you want. I'll spread through them all slowly. It's up to you. I'll keep going till you see one you like. Okay. And Vicki, this one is fine with me, but let me just say that if you want, I will allow you to exchange this card for a different card if you want. You don't have to.
No, I like that one.
That's what she said in the dream. Well, then, if this is the card you want, I want you to take that pen, take this card, sign your name on the face of the card in large letters. Sign it real big. And in fact, let's go even further. Vicki, would you draw any little design or doodle, any strange little thing that I couldn't possibly have anticipated? Go ahead, draw anything that you want. I don't know what that is, but it looks obscene. Of course, the point is that I could never in a million years duplicate Vicky's signature, let alone this strange little thing she drew here. So that the next time we see that 3 of diamonds, well, it has to be the same 3 of diamonds. I mean, we'll know it has to be the exact same 3 of diamonds that Vicky selected from the deck. I'm going to take Vicky's 3 of diamonds, bury it in the middle of the deck, and square up the cards very meticulously, so no one knows exactly where that card is. Now, Vicky, remember I showed you my dream card. You remember what I said about it? I said that it was designed to predict something that Vicky was going to do in a moment. Of course, what she did was to select a 3 of diamonds from the deck. So, Vicky, do you think it would be amazing if my dream card also turned out to be a 3 of diamonds?
Yes.
You're allowed to answer yes or no.
Yes.
Okay, well, Vicky, I want to show you something far more amazing, because not only is my dream card the 3 of diamonds, my dream card is Vicky's 3 of diamonds, because it has her signature right on it. My signature on the back, Vicky's on the face.
Come on, dude.
Come on, right?
Come on. That's what I'm talking about with Darwin Ortiz and the bam, bam, bam. I mean, it was a different color. Vicky picked a different color card. She signed the front. It went back in the deck. Darwin's card came out, and now it's a whole different color, and it had 2 signatures, one on the back, one on the front. It was pretty amazing structure and routine there. And the method's pretty awesome too.
It's really a wonderful thing. You see people use this structure, this presentation of this effect, that whole notion of a dream card predicting the future. I've seen many people sort of take this and try to go other ways, and I think Darwin's presentation and the structure of this routine, I still think, is the best. It's such a good piece of magic, man. I love it.
We'll talk about it in the after show. Tell you what, right
Yeah,
at the end of the show, we'll tear this one down just a little bit, okay? Because I think it deserves it. If you guys want, I don't know, put a 1 in chat if you want us to tear that one down in the after show. Yeah, good. All right, perfect.
We can do that for
yeah,
sure.
We can. All right. Well, shall we call it there today, or do we have one more?
Yeah, let's call it there today. And in
Yeah.
fact, let's do this. Let's take a little look here. We'll go into the after show and talk about what these are, but these are the Darwin Ortiz books that you need to get, right? Designing Miracles. This is how to construct tricks. Strong Magic, how to construct presentations. These are both trick books. These are later trick books of Darwin's. And then, of course, the ones that we know and love, the At the Card Table. This is the material we're looking at today. It comes from this book here. The follow-up was Card Shark, an excellent trick book. And of course, he has his annotations on Expert at the Card Table, Erdnase. And this is also a very fun read. And if you study Erdnase at all, this is a necessity. You need to have this on your shelf. So go and get yourself some reading material.